Bro. Hello everyone and welcome back to the stream. Uh, Hopefully you had a good weekend. And yeah. I skipped last week. Yeah, still a little bit of life intruding into my stream time. Turns out that a lot of time I have at my disposal is now in the weekend, and I'm probably not gonna stream in the weekend. Yeah, maybe I will, but most of the time I'm either just playing or just doing random stuff. So I'm not sure is stream worthy. Let me. Oh, yeah. Hopefully you had a good weekend. I had. I managed to spend, I don't know, maybe 10 hours in total in Minecraft. Minecraft is a dangerous game. So I try to be careful now. I started off like playing a couple of hours here and there, and then I realized that on Sunday that I started playing at around noon-ish, and I stopped at 7. That was not planned. It's very dangerous. So I used to do that with like turn-based 4X games like Master of Orion or like other 4X games like Civilization or something like that. I usually started off a game in the early morning and I'd stop late at night without even realizing that I stood there in front of my computer for like 8 hours. Oh. But yeah, so today I'm going to go back and do some Python development because it was kind of fun when I did it last stream, and I decided to keep it doing that. I'll go back to Amberall probably, if not on Wednesday, at the very least on Friday, depending on like streaming time and things like that. But yeah, no. Today we're gonna go back to the Meta Info Builder project that still is called Meta Info Builder. Doesn't have a proper name because I'm terrible at naming things. So I'm just gonna call it that. I had the thought of renaming it to Manifest, but Manifest is not technically correct, and also it can be way too generic. So for the time being, it's still Meta Info Builder, even though, yeah, it is and it isn't. It's not really a builder. It's like a editor, a metadata editor. But yeah, for the people watching this on YouTube or the people joining us late, the Meta Info Builder is a little application that I'm writing in Python that parses and generates the upstream metadata for applications. So whenever you create an application on Linux, or in general, even a specific, so in general on Linux and specific in GNOME, you should apply, you should provide a metadata file that contains various information like the author, the homepage, the description of the application, and so on and so forth. That metadata is used by GNOME software, for instance, to present it to the user. whenever you're installing an application, or if you are browsing like a software repository like FlatHub, you will get the metadata from there. So whenever you take an application and you publish it on FlatHub, for instance, the backend on FlatHub takes the metadata that you have inside your own application, and it will basically append it to the list of all applications that exist on FlatHub. And that information is used to build the page you see whenever you browse FlatHub. It's also used to generate the search index. It's used to deal with things like reviews and things like that. So it's an important part of the publishing process of an application on Linux. Though it's not strictly speaking limited to applications. The upstream specification, it can be also used for system components or distro packages, for instance. So in theory, distributions can take the exact same metadata whenever building their package repositories and then present it to the software centers like GNOME software or the KDE Discover. Well, no, in theory, that's exactly what happens. So whenever you browse your like Fedora repositories, or I don't think Debian does it, but OpenSUSE does it, for instance. Whenever you browse it with GNOME software, you are downloading the metadata from the repository, and that metadata is also augmented by the upstream metadata that you added to your application. The reason why I'm writing this application, though, is because the upstream format is just a bunch of XML, and everyone that I know that ships a GNOME application writes it by hand. Well, they copy and paste it from somebody else and then modify it to make it fit with their application. And there are a couple of problems with that, in the sense that basically you don't want to cargo call too much. You don't want to just copy and paste files from other applications and assume they will work without understanding how they work. And that is one. The other thing is the upstream metadata is not like a done specification. It's still being improved. It's still being updated. And if you don't understand how it works, then the end result is that you will end up shipping random stuff at some point, or deprecated or invalid or whatever else, because you copy and paste it, and that's usually what happens. We can already see it happening because there have been changes in the specification for the content of the data there. So people that have started older applications will have metadata that is reflective of how things were like 5 years ago, probably. And it's all well and good to wait until somebody opens a merge request and fixes that stuff, but it would be better to understand what you're doing beforehand, so you don't find yourself in a position of shipping broken stuff and waiting for somebody to show up and fix it for you. So this is why I decided to start a little application that does precisely that. It gives you a nice user interface to generate the XML that it's going to be shipped by your application, but also allows you to open an existing upstream metadata file and present it to you in a GUI that you can understand and edit. And I didn't know that at the time, so that was like 2 weeks ago. I didn't know that at the time, but the design team, actually, the GNOME design team actually had a couple of designs there for that case. So there are a couple of mockups here and there on the design team GitLab space, and in some cases it's all integrated with Workbench, which is the live editing tool for basically writing, live editing of GTK UIs and GNOME UIs. And one of the ideas was to add a live editor for the metadata there as well, which is an interesting thing to do. But also, it's there's another thing that you could probably say, and it would be to integrate this editor inside GNOME Builder. But I'm not incredibly enthused about adding this functionality to other applications, though it's probably a good idea. So if you want to contribute to Workbench, or if you want to contribute to GNOME Builder, then having a metadata editor is a good contribution. But also, if you want to go for like a standalone app, we can start from these kind of mockups that exist here. Like, Builder integration, you mockup here. You basically open up a Builder and you click on the metainfo.xml file and you get the entire thing. And you can also edit it via XML and blah blah blah. And here we have a couple of sub pages from the mockups to do content rating. And these are, and this is kind of an interesting, like in this case, the editor also has preview of how it will look inside GNOME software, which is interesting but entirely unnecessary, because doesn't really matter. What's interesting is that a bunch of the mockups and the initial designs, like thrown together by the design team, are actually pretty close to how I envision the meta-info builder to work. Some stuff is, it makes sense on a mockup, but doesn't make sense on an actual UI. But it's kind of interesting. So the thing that I wanted to do today was trying to fix change the way the metadata builder is currently implemented to basically remind you of the mockups here and add more functionality there. Add more functionality to the UI so that it can generate the other fields that haven't been implemented yet. Like, for instance, right now, let me show you how it looks as it is now. As you can see, I have updated GNOME Builder to the very latest version. GNOME Builder 43, after the Herculean work that Christian has done during this cycle to basically do a complete port of GNOME Builder and a bunch of its dependencies to GTK4 and libadwaita. And it basically did the entire port in 6 months. It was an amazing piece of work. It's incredible. So I'm shocked that he managed to do this, to pull it off. but it did. I'll probably update my system in a few days while I wait GNOME 43 to percolate from the Fedora testing to the next Silverblue 37. But yeah, as you can see, so the general idea is pretty similar to what the mockups present to you. So yeah, the icon is missing, but the icon is important up until a certain point. It's not. But the app name and developer name here, yeah, I do prefer having a single here bit here. There is no application ID, which is bad. It should be like from the center here. There's the summary here, and there's the description here, which is pretty much the same. These are the accent colors that are going to be used by a future version of GNOME software. So we are not gonna care about this bit here because it's unsupported right now. There's the content rating, which we don't have. We have author details here. The licensing is here. And we have the web links here. I call them web locations, but web links is perfectly fine. I'll probably just rename them. Instead of dumping them into sections of the same window, I decided to move them into separate sub pages, mostly to avoid scrolling a lot. This window here is gonna scroll a lot, and I don't want to do that. It's very annoying, and there is no real need to have all the web links like visible here, or the licensing having like 2 rows for licensing. It's kind of pointless when you can go here and you get the exact same thing. The releases also will have to be like a completely separate bit. Display size support will probably be a separate bit, and the input device support will be a separate bit. So I think it's better to move this kind of stuff to separate pages. The other reason why I want to move them to separate pages is because if you're scrolling, then a bunch of this stuff will react very badly when you do that, because the act of scrolling might trigger some of the actions on these rows. So I'd rather not do that. It's gonna scroll anyway, because there are a bunch of things here that will inevitably be big enough. So yeah, let's close this and let's go inside Builder and let's see how to restructure this UI. So we have here the application name, the developer name, and the contact here, contact email, are going to be part of the same author information. So it's gonna be in a separate section. Then we have, let's go inside the main window UI here. So yeah, we have the details box, which contains the app name, the summary, the description, the app ID. That's fine. We have the licensing, the author information, and the locations, the web locations. So first of all, let's rename this to web links. And then we are gonna move the licensing below the web links. So author details here. Licensing will go beneath the locations, which kind of makes sense. It's unlikely that you're gonna change the licensing before you change things like web pages and things like that, like the home page or the issue tracker or whatever. And the author information will have to can stay right below the details. Beneath them, we are going to put the input device support and the display size support. So we're going to do something like this. So we're going to copy here. And we're going to call it device group. Device row. And device details. And we are going to call it input device support. Oh, by the way, hi Martinez and hi Pervoj. Welcome. And yeah, if anybody has any questions over what I'm doing, just feel free. I'm gonna talk through it, but if anybody has any questions or like any question whatsoever when I'm about what I'm doing, then feel free to ask them in chat. I read the chat. There's no worries about that. Okay. So the way we structured this application is basically just a bunch of models and views. So we take advantage of the fact that libadwaita has all these groups here, professors group and the action rows and all the other rows for lists. Lists are kind of a central part of the GNOME designs these days. So we have a bunch of widgets that deal with them. In this case, we have an action row here, and every time you activate the action row, we emit an action called metainfo.subpage, and this action has a argument, which is a string called device details. And every time you activate, so whenever you click it or you press, like you navigate with your key and you press return, then this action gets emitted with this parameter. And we have a little bit of code inside the window that installs the action and says whenever you receive a subpage action in the metainfo namespace, we take the parameter that it has, the device details string in this case, and then we change the stack, we change the visible page in a stack in the main UI. So we switch to a subpage. In order to do that, we have this here. Modify lengths. And yeah, basically what happens is we switch to a separate page, and the separate page contains the widgetry that we want to display. So we have separate pages. So in this case, we are going to add a new page here. and we're gonna call it input device details, input device support. I mean, double check that I called it with the right name. Input device support. Yeah. And we change here with we called it, I keep forgetting stuff, device details. Input device details, and we have a box here, and we call it devices. In this case, this widget here is going to be our main widget for the page, so we'll have to create one. We'll have to create a new widget, a new derived type that contains, in this case, like a list box with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. Each row has a name, well, a title, and a switch here. And whenever you toggle a switch, we add the device to the list of supported devices inside the metadata. So it's pretty simple stuff. It's not overly complicated. So we'll have to implement that. We are gonna add a new file here, and we call it devices UI, and we're gonna also create a new devices by. So let's go inside the locations. This is kind of yeah, it's kind of a stock kind of thing, so we're gonna basically copy and paste it. Object, property, object again, property, and then template, interface. I'm gonna close it here. This is not location box, it's devices box. Let me double check that I called it the right way. Devices box. Let's call it that way. So devices box here. This is going to be devices list box. Yeah, this is pretty stock stuff. We reuse the same maximum size, the same margin for the for every single page, so that ideally this would look pretty much the same everywhere. Okay, so we're not gonna add, well, we should also add the various children here. So this is gonna be object class GTK. No, it's not gonna be a GTK box, but we can call it later on, and it's gonna be keyboard row. This is gonna be another child. We'll see what kind of row to use in just a second. And this is gonna be mouse. Let's copy this entire thing. be a touchscreen, gamepad, and graphics tablet. The selection is so nice in the newest version of GTK of GNOME Builder. You can see here the rounded corner on the gutter here. This is such a sweet detail. This kind of attention to detail that really stands out. And this is going to be graphics tablet. So we are going to need, okay, it's going to be lab weiter. Documentation 1.2 box list. So we're going to use an action row because an action row is kind of a immediate. We have a screenshot of an action row here, and it does exactly what we want it to. So yeah, that's perfectly fine. So we're gonna use ADW action row for everyone. Then we are gonna have property name. This is gonna be title. Translatable. It's gonna be yes. And then context is gonna be devices. And this one is going to be keyboard. This time spelled correctly. We are gonna copy the exact same thing. And we call it mouse. This one is going to be touch screen. Gamepad. And this is going to be graphics tablet. So this is actually pretty simple, and it's not going to be hugely complicated. We're gonna hook up the actions later on, but now I need to switch to Python to go into the devices file, and then we can do a similar thing here. Where are you? Here. So this is going to be here, the GTK template. Okay. It's gonna be called devices. And this is gonna be the devices box. since we are using a resource path, we are going to have to update the resource manifest. TUV. So this is going to be file UI devices.ui, and then we are going to have to modify the meson file to list devices PI. And then we'll have to go inside the window and import the object. So the reason I'm using no QA here is because I'm running Flake on the codebase so that I know that I'm actually not writing awful Python. Or at the very least, it's not excessively awful. But I'm not using meta info author box or details box or every other type here directly inside the code base, because it's actually something that I'm referring to those types from within the UI files. But in order to have the UI files use them, I have to register the type inside the type system. In order to do that, I have to import them inside the file that will be loaded first, and that will reference them, which is the Windows, the window PI file, PY file, and the window UI UI description file. So if I didn't have no QA here, Flake would complain about an unused import. The import is actually used. It's used underneath the entire thing by the Python bindings to provide these types to the template here. So this is and devices row. Here. Okay. Right. Oh yeah, unable to devices row. Okay, here. Where are you? Devices row and devices group here. Yep. So yeah, now you see there is a new group here right underneath the author details. Click on it and I get the rows here. Exactly as I expected them. This button here is the back button, and whenever I press it, I emit another, I activate another action, and the action basically says, okay, switch back to the page here on the main UI. So all the logic is contained into a single file, and there is no like leakage here and there. So yeah, you can see if I didn't group this, this would probably scroll a lot. Like I'd have to scroll it a lot to get to the input device here. Some things make immediate sense on a mockup, but sometimes you have to implement them and realize, well, maybe it's not. It's not good to have to scroll like half the size of the screen just to get to a single entry here, when you can collapse it and essentially access it pretty much immediately. So now we have to add a switch widget here, and it's going to be a suffix at this point. So yeah, an action row has a title, a subtitle that is optional, but also a suffix widget here. So yeah, we are going to go back to devices here, and we are going to add a property name suffix. Oh wait, need to double check. Oh yeah, no, it's not going to be a property. It's going to be a child type. Child type suffix. And it's going to be object plus dedicated switch. And it's going to be dedicated plus switch here. So a switch is actionable, which means that we can add an action there. So we are going to do property name action name, and we call it device. And we're going to call it property name action target. And we're going to call it keyboard. So every time we switch the little switch, we activate a action here, and we add this. And then we are going to do the same here. So let's actually see if this looks all right. Whoa, nice. Okay. I probably need to make it. Why is it expanding? It's pretty terrible. I guess it makes sense for other widgets, but Switch probably doesn't. Oh wow, what the hell? This is really bad. Let me check. Okay. Okay. Oh, v-align center? In theory, v-expand should not deal with this. It's basically just forcing it. I mean, I can see why. I can see what he's doing, but I don't understand why. Telling it not to expand it. Oh yeah, nice working. Thank you very much. Also, welcome. Yeah, it's kind of annoying that in theory should not be doing this. Telling it not to expand, it should in theory not make it expand. And the fill alignment only takes it's only taken into consideration if it's basically set to expand. Oh, 1 second. Oh, I have a kitty cat here that really wants my attention. Are you okay? Are you okay? Oh, he's probably hungry. But yeah. So this is disabled, which is fine. And I need to go here and add a new action. Device with a string and device and activate, and here widget action and parameters. Let's see what happens here. Yep. We get a window here, an action, and a parameters here, which is fine. It would, so I don't know if this is a Python thing or if it's a GTK thing at this point. The action here, I'm installing them on the window, of course. So the first argument is going to be the window here. What I would do normally in C is to install the action on the page, on the devices page here. Yeah, just 1 second, sorry. Be right back in a jiffy. Wow. Sorry about that. The cat is very adamant at being fed at specific times. Oh. So, as I was saying, what I would normally do in C is I create a class and then I create a bunch, install a bunch of actions on the class, so that whenever a widget that is a child of the class, a child in the hierarchy sense, activates that action, it will remain, the logic will remain confined into the class itself. The main problem, it seems, is that in Python, at the very least, the if I try to do that, the actions do not really work that way. So I need to install them manually, either inside a group myself, or I have to I cannot deal with them in that particular way from using the GTK widget class install action API. Because if I do that, so by way of an example, let's immediately look at what happens there. So first of all, I already have to do this kind of thing. Because the way that Python, the way that templates are implemented in Python is that the decorator here, GTK template, will be invoked whenever we are here. Whenever we are inside the init here, because the template will override the initialization code here. So the end result is that if I want to set up any action here, I have to call them before the template gets initialized. Otherwise, GTK will not find the action at all. So do something like this, and then I have to do def set up actions. And this is going to be a class method. Here. And let's say I do this here. And I call instead of meta info device, I call it devices toggle device. And let's call it that way. Yeah, that's fine. And then we call it on device row activate. It's going to be widget action and params. And I'm going to do print widget action and params. And this is fine, yeah? So this is what window here does. Exactly the same code. There's nothing special about it. It's mostly a side effect of how Python bindings work at this point. If I do this here, device is toggle device, and I change the action that I am triggering here, and I call it devices toggle device. Same here. Same here. And I run it. Ah, yeah, of course. Where are you? Here, it's class method without the underscore. Python, why are you so consistent? Okay. So if I go here, and go here, you can see that the action here is disabled. The widget is disabled. And a widget is disabled. Oh yeah. Where is... Yeah, here. Thank you. But yeah. So basically it doesn't actually change this. But yeah. So if I run it here, there we go. I go here, the widget here is disabled, and widgets are disabled with the actionable widgets are disabled if GTK cannot find the action they are supposedly activating. Which is annoying, because theoretically speaking, this one should be set up correctly at the right place. But it seems it doesn't. It seems it's not run correctly. I mean, it's probably run. Yeah, it's not run. So it seems it doesn't run here. Oh god, I know why it is. I better know why it is. It's because I'm not creating the widget. I'm having GTK Builder create the widget. And if GTK Builder creates the widget, new doesn't get called. So I have to do this. I bet this is the case. Yep. Correct. Ah, okay. So this is gonna be super, super fun. Okay. If okay, it's gonna be unpack. Oh, this is kind of annoying. Damn it. So the reason why it doesn't work is that the reason why window works the way it works is because I'm creating a window instance manually every time I activate the application, because I'm calling meta info builder window, which is the constructor. Whereas the widgetry inside the window is instantiated from GTK Builder itself, and GTK Builder goes through gobject new, doesn't go through the Python bindings. And the Python bindings only call init, which is the instance initialization. There is no class initialization there. The underscore underscore new underscore underscore is called by the actual constructor. So this is gonna be fun. This ought to be documented somewhere, and I will have documented. Propose it somewhere. Yeah. I mean, I will be able to change a bunch of stuff here, but like, for instance, I will be able to remove a couple of these actions here and move them to the appropriate class. But now it's kind of annoying because they will have to behave differently. This is the main problem when dealing with language bindings. Whenever you deal with language binding, whenever you deal with a C library through language bindings, you end up with impedance mismatches between the API that it exposed inside the language binding to the API that it's in C, which has repercussions in the design of the function, it's the code base itself. And also you have to deal with the weirdo bugs, quote unquote, in the bindings themselves. Of course, you should not write complex GUI applications in C unless you know exactly what you're doing. And I'd contend that very few C programmers know exactly what they're doing. still, it's this kind of stuff that gives you a pause and tells you, oh, maybe you should write this stuff in C if you know what you're doing. Anyway, so it's going to be device unpack insert device in keyboard. Let's use a single keyboard, mouse, touch screen, gamepad, and graphic tablet. Graphics tablet. So if device keyboard let active. Jeez. Active is self keyboard row active. Yeah. Elif device is mouse. We're gonna have to add all the rows here. And then touch screen row. Gamepad row. I would love to have match, but I'm still coding against an older version of Python, so and I know you'll ask, why didn't you code it in Rust if you're basically just writing Rust at some point? It's just whenever I deal with XML, the language that I end up preferring these days is Python. It used to be Perl, but these days is Python. So now we are going to need inside the meta info here. We have to do here. We have to go back inside, and I apologize for the light mode, but it's the website. We have to look at the where are you? Here, the control inside the So this is, yeah, this is it's part of the terribleness that is the spec, the upstream metadata spec. An application can support, can require, or can recommend control devices. I'm going to be hard pressed to find a metadata file that actually conforms to this. I mean, let me check. So what do I use here? I use recommends. Recommends keyboard pointing and touch. The device, it's already like bad. It's like touch. Why it's touch screen? It's not touch. But Jesus Christ. So from a UI perspective, this is going to be nasty because we have all these devices and then we have to basically say, okay, this application recommends the use of pointing device, but, and it could be like a selection, a simple drop-down selection that says, okay, you want to select something inside it, just select it and be done with it. But what does like require? So can is it exclusive or not? So if I add like a supports pointing device and then recommends a pointing device and then requires a pointing device, or if I require it, automatically recommends and supports, or if it's recommend, then it also supports, or so it's this spec is so weird. And of course, nothing of this is validated. You'd be forgiven if you thought, oh, I have this incredibly expansive specification that says, there you go, you have the ability to support, recommend, and require like interaction devices. And then, is there any kind form of validation? You know, maybe not. I love this. If a control type is required, the same as in recommended, the software installer should refuse to install the software on a device which do not have at least one of the input methods. It is therefore advised to only use the control tag in supports and possibly recommends block, and avoid to use it in requires. Then why does this exist? I mean, I understand what the point of the spec is. It's trying to be as expansive as possible, but you cannot be expansive without encoding an actual behavioral mechanism. This is like the notification spec all over again. The reason why GNOME doesn't follow the free desktop notification spec as defined, like, I don't remember how many, more than a decade ago, is because the specification by itself is absolutely useless. It is the paramount of a specification written by people that not write specifications, because it is expansive, but at this very same time it basically mandates no behavior whatsoever. And if I wanted to be a little bit evil, or at the very least if I want to be a little bit nasty and like make a snide remark, it is the epitome of a specific mindset that used to exist in the early noughties, especially in some projects that are not GNOME. And they're basically just, you can do whatever you want. You can do all you want, except if you try to actually implement it, you have to choose something, and at which point the specification will never save you. The implementations become fundamental, and the specification doesn't mean anything whatsoever. Like, as I was saying, the notification spec and the case status notifier specification as it exists basically says that an implementation doesn't have to do anything. You can literally say, I own this name, the required name on the session bus, and not do anything whenever somebody actually calls any method in it. It would be 100% spec compliant to not do anything. And the appstream spec sometimes reminds me a lot of that particular notification. Basically, it's, yeah, you can describe anything, but it doesn't mean anything, because it's all deferred to an implementation, and that implementation can do whatever the fuck it wants. So you cannot rely on any behavior. And if you're implementing this, not only if you're implementing a validation service, but also if you're actually writing the metadata, you have no idea how to deal with this. It's like, yeah, you have to write it by hand, because there is no possible like mechanism as a UI or a validation tool that will come out and say, you're doing something impressively stupid, please don't do this. At which point, if you're writing a spec that is meant to be written for a format that is meant to be written by hand by application developers, do not use XML. Why are you using XML? XML is a terrible format. It's okay for machine reading, and machine generation, but it's terrible to use from humans. Humans do not write XML. It's like people saying you should write configuration files in JSON. No, don't do that. Same thing. We make the same mistakes all over again. So at this point, I'm gonna say fuck it. And I'm gonna do recommends. Okay, so it's going to be a requirement, and it's going to be device a control here. Let's use the controls here. Printing. What are you doing? That's why I don't understand how you can write UI files by hand. That is absolutely true. I'd contend the fact that the UI files in XML are easier to deal with because the grammar is very limited. You only have like 4 tags and nothing more. So it's there is nothing there. The appstream spec has a ton of elements, a ton of tags, a ton of structure, a ton of attributes, and it's really not meant to be written by. I mean, the way it's written is clearly meant to be written by hand, but it's a terrible way to do it because humans have a very hard time to deal with this. And I'd contend that any format that is more complicated than like 4 tags is gonna be hard to write by hand. Even Blueprint is hard to write by hand because you have to know all the properties of an object, at which point you have to go into the documentation. So it's going to be a problem there anyway. Oh, the alt tab is fudged. Okay. Console. Hi, Georges. Tablet. Yeah, I spot a fellow person with culture. Yeah. To be fair, it updated by itself. I didn't expect that to happen, but it happened. Touch, gamepad, TV remote. You chose the correct team. Solarized, come on. Voice and vision. That's fine. So we are gonna get a control from meta info. And then we are gonna get the, where are you? And then for rec and self is if control where are you? value. And then set control. Okay. Okay, check if it's already there. Otherwise, we do self recommends and all. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna do it that way. Obsidian forever. I've tried other like color schemes to be fair. Solarized is the Solarized Dark is still the one that I feel more comfortable with, mostly because it's not full black. A full black is not great for my vision. I mean, this is way too black. Okay. So, yeah, so we're storing the we can set up the switches here, and then we can update the metadata ourselves. And we are gonna need a signal there. So we do exactly like the location. We have a signal here. Okay. Okay, so we can do this. Here. Self devices. We are gonna do device, and then self devices changed. Yep. We know that as changed because otherwise the action would not be emitted. So we're gonna do this, and then inside the window we are going to connect to the signals here, we are going to use devices change. We need to store the signal ID. There you go. We're gonna do exactly the same thing here. So if self devices ID here, self devices reset devices, and then self devices disconnect. Whenever we load a new file, new metadata file, we change the object that contains the metadata, and in order to do that, we need to disconnect all the signals that are involved in that. Otherwise, we are gonna update things that should not be updated. This is needed for updating. Yeah. Whenever we parse. So this one will be yeah, we'll need a way to update whenever we parse the metadata to update the UI. Okay. And then here, we have one devices changed. And then we do, okay, we have to go here. This is gonna be Liam. And inside the meta info here, well, we're gonna go back here for device enabled in self locations devices. Okay. And then we are gonna go self meta info. Where are you here? Set recommends control. If enabled, meta info, set recommends control. It's not really the right way to do it. This is mostly just to check if I'm doing right, if I'm structuring the code correctly. Yep. Oh yeah. It's not get active here. Devices. This is gonna be get suffix. Action row as an attribute get suffix. What the hell? Do I only have access to... What the heck? This is annoying. This is really annoying. I need to add an ID. I need to add an ID for the actual switch. There is no way to access the suffix widget from the action row, which is... I don't particularly like it. Get activatable widget. It's not the activatable widget though. It's not the activatable widget. The activatable widget is the widget that you activate whenever the row gets activated. But it's not what I'm looking for. The row is not activatable in this case. I would have to make it activatable, and then I would have to say it activates this widget whenever it gets activated. And then I would need to set up the entire thing to do the same thing. But an action row has a prefix and a suffix widgets, and those are not the activatable widgets. So yeah. It's not locations, devices. And instead of devices, the row here, I will have to use the string. Where are you? Okay. But now it's correct, yeah. Set locations, not location, devices. Two, 1, 3. Yeah, not location. Python. There's something fucky going on with the focus here. Okay. Yeah, it's not meta info, but it's metadata. I need to add more type annotations so I can get proper. There you go. So if I go here and I do example map, I then save it. Okay. Test. Update XML. Oh, good. Now we have a proper. Okay. Wow. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. Okay, this is interesting. But yeah, at the very least, we now have a decent idea of what the heck is happening. Mhm. So let's see. This is interesting. Can I serialize a string? Okay. Which is fine. Since it's the only thing that changed, I assume it's gonna be a control problem. Okay. Unless it's missing something else, in which case, example, no. Okay, yeah, no, it's just a control there. So, let's see. So, where are you? For recommends, we create a component, and then for each requirement inside recommends, we append the serialized version of that. So let's go back to the controls here. Okay, this is control. And we return the control. And below that, inside the serialization code, here we use append. Yeah. Let's do something like this. Recommends requirement value. Let's see if we can get something to print out. Okay. Ah, idiot. Okay. Okay. So it's a string now. Mm-hmm. Here. Now, let me double check one thing here. What are you doing here? Yeah. Devices and self devices. Yes. Let's do it the old-fashioned way. We need to remove the recommend there. So never remember if it's safe to do this, but Okay. This is weird. Let me see. Let me see. Come on. I mean, clearly I'm not a Python programmer. Again, what are you doing here? It's a control object. And value is a class string. Why is value class string? I mean, why is it serializing that way? Hi, Alatira. Oh, what? Yeah, I was wondering why there was no minimap here. This is weird. So I'm adding a requirement here. Control. I'm an idiot. Why doesn't Python warn you? Fucking hell. Okay, let's see. Test. Okay. Mouse, keyboard, mouse, touch screen. Yeah. So. There we go. Place it. Okay, now we have only 3 of them. And yeah. So if I go here and enable these 2, and then go back here and I do this. Yeah, we only have 2 of them. Okay. Oh, God. That was equal parts embarrassing and bad in general. Okay, so now we have a way to update the device changes, but also we need a way to ensure that we have that when we load the metadata, we update the UI. So we will need a reset devices here. Where are you? This is. And then we will need a way to set those devices. Then we are going to need this is going to be a list of strings. For device in devices, self devices equals. And then we are going to do if device keyboard self keyboard switch set active. Mouse switch. Actually, we can do this. Okay. It's gonna be like this. Then I will have to change the values here to match the actual values in the spec, but for the time being, it's fine. Keyboard, mouse, touchscreen, gamepad, and graphics number. That's it. Okay. I should actually change this to be reset devices. And I will also need to iterate over the switches to reset them to false as well. Okay. Okay, it's gonna be keyboard switch. Okay. it's gonna be like this. It will complain anyway. So okay, that seems to be working correctly. And then we are going to need this. We're going to need to modify the metadata parser. Okay. So parse recommends. Yeah. Okay. So if node or child in node, if child tag is control, then we do self recommends and control from XML child. Oh, come on. And basically, yeah, recommended controls would be a list of strings. What are you doing? And here, whenever we have a device change, yeah, we set the devices here, we disconnect, and then we do self devices set devices. Yeah. So let me go here. Okay, we need to open up here, and then we are gonna do recommends. Oh, no, I mean keyboard. I know this is invalid, but okay. So let's see if it parses correctly. Yep. And if I add a touchscreen here, go back, and then we save it, replace. Then we go back here, start changes and reload. We have a recommends that includes the touchscreen as well. Okay, so that was fun. Oh yeah, a change from last stream is that I implemented the a simple subset of Markdown parser and generator. Basically, you write this in a simil Markdown, like a pretty much Markdown, but without links, without anything, only paragraphs and lists, which is what the description field inside the appstream data supports. And then the metadata builder will turn it into XML, or will load the XML and present it to you as Markdown light. So that kind of worked out. Okay. So we actually need a way to make this. Yeah, we need to map the values here into values that are correct according to the spec. So we want to keep these to be our identifiers, but we want them to be changed into other identifiers so that whenever we serialize them correctly into the values that the spec recommends. Otherwise, we'd have to match the values inside the UI files, which, to be fair, is another option. I mean, instead of using mouse, using pointer. No. Here, pointing. So this one would be pointing. This would be touch. Then we have gamepad and tablet. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, there's the other option of doing like a symbolic version. So if I imported from meta info import control, then I could do something like this. And use the symbolic version using the constants that we have there. And then change it everywhere, basically. So it's going to be control keyboard, control pointing, gamepad, and control This is one of the tablet. And same here as well. Actually, yeah, no. Basically just replace this with self devices control keyboard active. Gamepad. And yeah, so we keep the device inside the UI file, which is used by the inside the action parameter, like this, with a different name, and then we map that name to a specific value that is going to be then used when serializing, which is perfectly fine. Otherwise, I'd have to fix every single instance inside the UI file, and then I have to match and keep them in sync. Instead, this, yeah. Yeah. Where are you? 936. Now this is invalid because the values were incorrect, but if I do this and I save it again, the values will be fine. There are duplicates there, the old ones. I need to reset them properly. But yeah, basically the idea is that if you have additional values here that are not known, we leave them as they are because the specification may change. But I have to add an entire validation step that basically whenever you save, well, before you save, while you're editing the file, it will tell you, oh, there are like additional like things there, or the value here is incorrect, or this is not really expected. But the overall idea is that since this entire thing has to be unedited at some point, or has been unedited, the idea of removing stuff that is not understood is iffy at best. I prefer to err on the side of caution and leave stuff that I don't understand inside the file. Given that the entire spec is designed around the fact that people might add a bunch of things there, and who knows, maybe it's valid, maybe it's not valid, maybe it will be valid in the future, maybe it was valid in the past. Yeah, the entire validation step of this spec is weird at best, and best effort at like it's best effort on a regular basis. I don't think anybody's actually validating this stuff. I mean, the specification itself says, okay, you can have an entire an entire metadata file that contains screenshots, or you might not have them. If you have the screenshots, they may have a caption. They might not have them. They are images. Okay, that's fine. They are images. Is the screenshot an image that makes sense? Who knows? And the validation is imposed by other tools. One of them is the one inside FlatHub, and the rules for the validation of that particular bit are completely opaque. They are not documented anywhere, which is great. Just exactly what you want when you want to deploy an application and distribute it inside a centralized place. It's great. I tell you, it's great. Okay. Anyway, I think at this point we have a decent thing. Maybe we want to update the subtitle as well. Let's see here. So if we do something like this, controls, calls, self, metadata, recommended controls. If then controls. This row set subtitle. Something like this. Yeah, it's 5 devices, but it's not really 5 devices. These are the known devices here. But again, it was me fucking around with the XML anyway, so. But okay. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, at some point, well, at some point, I'll have to do some actual, like, honest to God validation here, because otherwise it's gonna be a mess. It's already a mess, so might as well take the plunge and fix, or I can validate the contents, but well, I can validate the structure, but validating the contents would require actually sitting down and figuring out what validation actually means and what kind of rules we have, which means opening up appstream. No, it's app data util. Or upstream util. Yeah. So it requires opening up this and figuring out what validation actually means. I mean, there's a ton of stuff here, but I have no idea. Yeah. Maybe you should also clean off the Flatpak manifest editor and push it to the finish line. Yeah, I mean, this entire thing is kind of inspired by your work on the Flatpak manifest builder. And yeah, I think we need more little tools like this for application developers. Otherwise, people will never do the right thing when we are talking about formats that are completely freeform and usually unedited. The unediting is what fucks you over. So I think having more little tools for generating those kind of files is gonna be a good thing. In theory, those should be integrated inside GNOME Builder, for instance. But at the very least, having them separate will push people that are not using GNOME Builder to use them, and will also push towards a series of discussions about the contents of those files. If they can be programmatically read and programmatically edited and displayed in a coherent way, then maybe they are okay. But if you cannot figure out a UI to represent them, then maybe the file is wrong, the format is wrong, and you need to fix it. Let me see. Because yeah, the main problem that we have is that we have a bunch of files that have been thrown together. They are machine parsable but human writable, and those files always end in tragedy. Let me see. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff inside here that, who knows, maybe works, maybe doesn't. Lots of validation rules, but the validations are undocumented. And they were written when GNOME software was new. And the appstream metadata spec was new. So who knows? When was the validation code last updated? 22nd of July. Oh, at the very least. Let me see if there's history. Actually, no, sorry. Yeah, no. Yeah, the actual validation stuff is from 2019. Yeah, no. I got you, Georges. This is the URL for the people that don't want to parse. In theory, gitlab.gnome.org should be fine as a URL for other people. So you should be able to paste it without incurring into the wrath of the bot. But yeah. But yeah, all of this stuff is like ages ago and it hasn't been updated in as much. Oh. So bad. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think we are approaching the time for the end of the stream. I was ready divine punishment of bot overlords. Yeah. URLs from GNOME.org should be fine. They are automatically accepted. I don't. There are a couple of websites that I allow that, mostly because I know that they don't have spam. But yeah. Anyway, so hopefully this one was not too boring. The overall idea of this application is to try and be useful for somebody that is writing an application for like Linux at this point, not even GNOME. I know that other people have tried or have worked on this problem space. There is another application that does the GUI editing of the metadata file. I think I saw it on FlatHub. Somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, this one. So there is a Qt application. Yeah. I think so, at the very least. It's another Python one. Interesting. Requirements. Yeah, it's using Qt. That's fine. I don't begrudge anybody's to choose. Well, the icon gave it away. But yeah. The UI. Yeah. Okay. So I'm trying to write something that is GNOME like that is GNOME adjacent. So if possible, if at all possible, ideally should be GNOME adjacent. And hopefully the new the mockups that the design team came up with a while ago. Let me see when that happened. Here, like, yeah, 4 months ago. Following those might be okay. So having something like this or something like this for better integration inside GNOME is going to be useful for people writing applications targeting GNOME right now. Maybe this is gonna be a prototype, and I'll just figure out how this works in a decent way, and then I will try to port it as a GNOME Builder plugin at this point. So whenever you click on the on the metadata file for your application, you will be able to edit it using the GUI instead of having to edit the XML manually. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not promising anything, especially because the complex bit is gonna be the content rating, which is a very structured UI, because it has a lot of subsections and more complex input. And then there's the releases. A release is gonna have like a bunch of information there. I have a description, I have the date and the type of development, the type of release, and so it's gonna be a mess. So the real interesting bits are gonna be the screenshots, the releases, and the content rating. And only the content rating as a mockup. So, you know, it's gonna be fun. Also, why? Yeah, no. I don't know. Why is the network there? Should be a capability. Plus, there are a bunch of extensions to the XML as well, to the spec. There are custom tags that Purism is using. There are a bunch of other tags that are going to be ignored completely by FlatHub, but should be in the XML. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens there. As I said, ideally, we'd have a bunch of these utilities. And then we'd have all these utilities embedded inside GNOME Builder, and GNOME Builder would allow you to edit all this stuff. For instance, George's Flatpak manifest editor would be a way for you to, like, you click on the YAML or you click on the JSON file, and then you set up everything, and then Builder picks up the changes and updates itself. So you don't have to write JSON by hand, which is a terrible user experience for anybody involved. Between you, the parser, the people that wrote the parser, yeah, it's terrible. Same thing for this, for the metadata. The metadata should not be that. Another thing that I want to write would be the G-resource manifest editor. That one would be a plugin inside GNOME Builder because it's a lot better that way. So basically, you open the G-resource XML, and then you select the files, and you select the alias or the operation you want to perform on them. Like you want to strip all the white space from this XML file, whatever. So yeah, that would be a good candidate for an extension for GNOME Builder, because otherwise it's going to be a mess. That is a classic one. Another utility would be to merge the icon library utility into GNOME Builder, so that you select all the icons that you want to add, and it will automatically put them inside a location inside the project, and then update the G-resource manifest with them. In reality, we have a ton of ancillary files, tons of ancillary stuff that exists within any project, and all those files, all the metadata, should not be hand-edited. It's a terrible user experience, and we should have more of these utilities for application developers. Otherwise, they're gonna just look at a platform and say, okay, not great. It has an IDE, but it only deals with code instead of dealing with the project maintenance of the project maintenance experience. So developer experience is very limited at the moment, and yeah, we need more integration there. So who knows? Hi, Jakob. Thanks for joining. But yeah, I sincerely hope I will be able to do a stream on Wednesday. I need to get back to Amberall now that GNOME 43 is out. I need to update the manifest there. I need to update the to merge the contribution that Christopher Davis did, which is porting the about dialog to the new Adwaita about dialog, which is important. So that one, I need to finish the work on the marquee label, so I will be able to remove the ellipsization inside the labels for the album artist and album title and the song title, and that is probably going to be a very close release to Amberall 1.0. There are a bunch of other things that I want to land in Amberall, so the development is not finished by any measure. So don't worry. Just because I release 1.0, Amberall is not gonna go away. It's not gonna be done. But there are a bunch of things that I want to land, but I want to land after 1.0 is out because the UI has been stable enough that I don't plan to change that much now. I still need to do the party mode. I still want to do the focus mode. I still want to do the ability to change the orientation so that you can use it in landscape instead of using it in portrait mode. But yeah, there are a bunch of decisions there that need to be made, and I want to make a 1.0 release that says, okay, the application is now working as intended. Anything that happens from now on is going to be like incremental improvements or additional stuff. It's not going to change underneath your ass. And yeah, also, yeah, next week is going to be interesting because if all goes well, there will be news. So there will be news starting from October, and I'll do a stream about them. So we'll see. It will impact when I can stream, but it will be more reliable and will be better. So stay tuned for the stream on I have no idea when. Let me double check the dates. So yeah, Friday I will stream and do a couple of announcements there. On Wednesday we have a GTK team meeting right around the time when I usually start streaming, so I might end up delaying there. Yeah, I'll probably do a later stream on Wednesday. So yeah, hopefully, yeah, everything will be fine by Friday. So I will announce. I have a couple announcements, and yeah, on Wednesday we can also talk about what we talked about at the GTK team meeting, which is not something that happens every single day. It should, but it doesn't. Anyway, thank you very much for following along. I will publish this stream and the previous one on Meta Info Builder on my YouTube channel. So if you want to catch up, you can always go back to my VODs on the GNOME, the GObject deep dive, on Amberall, working on Amberall. So on the documentation side of things, those are pretty useful. I should publicize them more. A lot of people that just join, and it's hard for me to just loiter around in the newcomers channel and say, and reply to the people asking, how do I start with, oh, here's a video, a 3 hours video that says how to start with GNOME. It feels a little bit, yeah, shameless plug. But yeah, those are usually, I try to be informative, so those should be probably useful for newcomers as well. Anyway, thank you again. Have a lovely rest of your Monday. And I shall see you all on Wednesday for a new stream. Thank you very much. Bye.